Hi there, Gary here again, and for this video I want to talk about the levels of instruction, but I thought it would be easier for you to follow this if I show you the slideshow, so you're not just looking at me all the time. So for the levels of instruction, you've got three main levels of instruction: guided, prompted and independent, and I'm going to go through them in a bit of detail. So guided, or some people call it talk through, consists of three elements: alert, inform, instruct. That's the structure for your guided instruction. So when we alert, you alert the pupil to a hazard. It's important to prioritise that hazard, so there might be lots of different things that you're looking at down the road, but there will be one hazard that is the most important one to talk about, so you would alert to that one. And keep it short and simple, because if you spend too long with the alert, all you're doing is travelling closer to that hazard and the pupil isn't doing anything about it. So you need to keep it short. So a couple of words if you can, just 2 words if possible. Inform is similarly, keep it short and simple, but we're going to inform the pupil about the hazard, basically why it's a hazard. What vision have we got, for example? Let's say it was a pedestrian crossing and we couldn't see to one side of it. We've got a lack of vision on that side. Activity, similar kind of thing. If it's a crossing, is there any activity there? But those two things, vision and activity, go for other subjects as well. It could be a junction with it open and closed, and what can we see into the road, that kind of thing. Gradients come into it, severity of a bend, anything basically that's going to affect the pupil about the hazard, something that they need to do something about. And what might happen, so that's another thing that you could bring in, what if. Keep it short and simple, like I said. Again, if you spend too much time with information, you're just travelling closer to that hazard without doing anything about it. So alert and inform quite quickly, and then we get on to the instruct. So we're going to instruct the pupil through what to do, and that would be routine based usually. So we're going to start off with a routine. If we're on the move, it'll be mirrors first. It's always mirrors before anything. If we're setting off, it could be POM, P-O-M. You may not know about the POM routine, but that stands for Prepare, Observe, Move. It's not in all the books, so you may or may not know about that one. MSM, MSPSL you should know about, but whatever you're going to instruct them through, it's usually a routine. Be specific as well. So for example, if you wanted the pupil to check the mirrors, you wouldn't just say check your mirrors, you'd have to say which mirrors to check. Or if you wanted them to signal, you wouldn't say signal, you would say whether it's left or right. So being specific, it helps the pupil to get it right and prevent a lot of faults. Use the correct terminology, so you wouldn't use terms like slow down. It doesn't really mean very much. You would have to say things like off the gas or gently brake, and I will cover terminology in a lot more detail in a separate video. Keep it short and simple again, so that whatever you're asking the pupil to do, they can understand it, they do it as soon as you've said it, and therefore they're going to be able to drive through that hazard that you pointed out in the first place quite correctly and safely. Prompted instruction. This is the next step up from guided, so you want to be moving the level of responsibility over to the pupil a little bit, but you can still prioritise the hazard to keep control. Now you might tell or ask the pupil about the hazard, depending on how much time you've got or whether you think the pupil is at a level where they might be able to answer the question. So if you think you've got time, you could ask, but if not, just tell them why it's a hazard, just like you would in the guided. But the prompted part of it comes in what they want to do about the hazard, the response to the hazard, basically the routine that they're going to go through. So if it was MSM, for example, you might say, which mirrors are you going to check? Do we need to give a signal? That kind of thing. So you're being specific with the question to find out what answer you're looking for, so that they're usually going to get the answer right, and it can't be misconstrued and they're not going to be confused about what you're asking. So using the routine again and being specific. Use targeted questions to get the answer you're looking for. So for example, if it was approaching and turning left, you might say, which mirrors are you going to check? When are you going to signal? Where are you going to position? Which gear do you need? That kind of thing. So you're being specific with each element of it. You're not just going to say, what are you going to do next? It could be anything then, and by the time you've got an answer back and it's a wrong answer, you've gone past the time when you should have done it correctly. So to help the pupil to get it right at a prompted fashion, you're going to really target the question that you want. KISS, keep it short and simple again. Independent, this is more second phase, although sometimes you can use it on first phase, but it's certainly the level of instruction that you want to use on the second phase. So in this case, you wouldn't tell them what the hazard was, you would ask them to spot the hazard for you. So you would ask them what hazards can they see, for example. In your own mind, you know which one you want them to be prioritising, but you've got to find out, are they seeing that particular hazard? And if they're not, then that tells you there's a fault there and you can start to fix that fault. But hopefully they'll give you the right answer to what the hazard is. And then you can ask why it's a hazard, what's going to happen, what might happen, that kind of thing. Again, related to what you would have told them in the first place, but you turn it into questions now. And then ask them what they're going to do about it. But this time not so much in a prompted fashion, but just an open question, just like what are you going to do about this, or how are you going to deal with it, so that it gives them a chance to tell you what they're thinking. And you're not being too helpful with that. Use probing questions to find out what they're thinking and what they're going to do. Check the knowledge and understanding as well. This is quite important. Even if you've seen the pupil do something correctly, you don't really know whether they did it consciously or for the right reasons. So it's a good idea to just check, did they know why they should have done it like that? Did they understand it? So for example, if you've got a pupil that's pulled up in a queue of traffic and they've left tyres in tarmac space, you might just look at that and think, well, that was good. But if you don't say anything about it, you're not able to find out, do they fully understand why it's important to do that? They might have just done it by chance. So by asking them, why do we need to leave this space, you would find out if they understood it or not. So this is a little grid that hopefully will explain to you how to use these levels of instruction. So we've got guided at the top, prompted and independent. You've then got alert, inform, instruct down the left hand side, and perceive, evaluate and respond on the right hand side. Now perceive, evaluate, respond is exactly what you do as a driver. You do it unconsciously, but as you see a hazard, you're prioritising which one's going to be the most important. You then evaluate that hazard and think about why it's going to be a hazard to you, and then you respond in a certain way, which is usually with a routine. So on the left, where we're guiding somebody, we're going to tell them what we're looking at, what we've perceived, we're alerting them to that hazard. We're then going to tell them the evaluation of that, the information about it, why it's a hazard. And then we're going to instruct them through what to do about it. So next step is prompted. We can still keep control by telling them what the hazard is, and in the middle we can either tell them or ask them, and then at the bottom we're asking them about the routine, basically what they're going to be using to deal with that hazard. And on the right hand side, independent, that's where you're going to ask everything, and at that point the pupil should be perceiving, evaluating and responding correctly, and by using independent instruction you're checking whether they are doing that, and as I say, that's more of a second phase technique. You're never really going to be using just one level of instruction on its own. You'd usually be using two, maybe all three, and swinging the pendulum between them, so that if you find a fault, you can go back to guided and then move back to prompted and then back up to independent again, for example. On a first phase you would start off by guiding, and then as they got better you'd move over to prompted, but you might be prompting with some of it, still guiding with other bits, and bits of it you might be able to move over to independent. So I hope that's helped on that, with that. And here's the motto again: 20 letters, 10 words, 1 meaning. If it is to be, it is up to me. So prepare to pass.